So I'm just sitting in my car here, running through my class, and I just wanted to kind of share with you um, the sequence that I go through. This is just the simple version, I guess you'd say. I usually start my clients supine, so they're on their back, looking up towards the ceiling. I check the range of motion of their neck. I check the range of motion and power of the left shoulder, and then the right shoulder. I do what I call a toe test. Is where I pull on the toes and see if the toes and the ankle gives. That's usually an indicator of lymphatic weakness or sluggishness in the legs. And then after the toe test, I do hip range of motion on the left side, and then I might do a glute release, and then I do that on the right side. After that, I will do a friction test, and this is where I rub all over the sheet, and that shows either heat, no heat, or even cold. That also gets them introduced to working areas of the body that they would not be typically comfortable with, which would be the over the anterior hip, the inguinal area, the stomach, lower ribs, upper ribs, and center ribs. After I do that, I'll go through and move the fascia around in a specific way and ask for permission if I can work on the stomach, if I can work on the rib cage. And then I ask if they've ever had this work done before. 9 times out of 10, it's no. And then I make kind of like a that sucks for you type of emotion, because it's really important to work those areas. Most times, people only feel that they get that work done by chiropractors for adjustments, but not actually for massage. After I do that, then what I do is I like to flush the legs. I'll go through and I'll push the fluid up the adductor line, pull on the hamstring. Let's see. Then after that, I'll do that on each leg. Recheck range of motion on the hips. 9 times out of 10, it gets a lot better, and they're really amazed by how much range of motion they get and more power they get. Then I'll ask them if it's okay to work their core, and I'll drape their chest, unless they're a male. Most guys are okay with working on the chest and prefer it actually. Some women do as well. Just got to be covering the chest up a little bit differently. Then I go through and check for flow on the rib line, and do the same thing on the other side. I'll also do a flush if they're okay with that. Running from my hand from the ASIS over the inguinal line, up the core, over the sternal line, through here and out to the outside, and then laterally as well. And then I'll repeat that on the right side. If they have a lot of dysfunction in the glute system and we have enough time, what I usually do is they're still not aware of how much their bands are causing an issue, then I'll go sideline, and I'll have them do like a clamshell, and then it's basically just to check to see what is the actual cause. Is it the bands on the glute system, or is it more the band on the bra line? So then I'll manipulate the fascia in some of the muscles like the serratus anterior, lats, stuff like that, and then I'll recheck the clamshell. 9 times out of 10, that fixes it. If it doesn't, then I might have to work the glutes a little differently, and I'll do that on the other side. It's more for an awareness of them how much their bands really affect their body. And then after I do sideline, then I'll go face down, which is prone. And then I'll go, let's see. Before I go prone, what I'll do sometimes is I'll ask them to pick their head up. Having a heavy feeling head is an indication that there's a lot of fluid in your core. If they feel that, usually people with headaches and stuff, or people that get headaches, that's what I'll check. And then I'll release the lower core a little bit harder, usually over the sheet in the blanket, unless I have a need to do that when I work on the core initially. And then prone, depending on how much pressure is in their system, how much pain they're feeling, I like to start with the shoulders, get that softened up, the delt muscles, and get the shoulders supported so that way it allows blood flow through that area. So that way when we flush the legs and the glutes, it has somewhere to go. 9 times out of 10, I'd prefer to do that. Sometimes it doesn't let me. Time doesn't let us, especially if you do sidelines. So then I'll do just a quick release to the posterior deltoid muscle, and then I'll go through and use towels for flow, and I'll ask them which way feels better. Then I'll flush out their legs and glutes. I don't actually flush their legs. I just assess their legs. I'll release the glute line, and then I'll go back to the legs, and the legs I can put a lot more pressure on it as long as that lymphatic tract is open. And then after that, then I'll go through, and they're feeling all good with that. I'll do a full flush. So I call it a half drape, and where I just push the whole system from the ankle all the way to the shoulder. And then if I have enough time, which I would prefer to have enough time, or allow myself to have enough time to do that, would be to go supine again and recheck the neck range of motion, check to see how it feels. If I need to, I can do a quick flush like over the blanket, from the hip to the chest if needed. Some people request to do the half drape on the skin again, just because as you're laying face down, the pressure on the chest and the pressure on the stomach and the quads will kind of congest the system. So, but if I don't have time to do that, or they don't want that done, then I'll just go to the neck and then do a facial flush as well. So that is the system. That is how I assess the system. So that's basically the intro to that. It's really, on the surface of what I said, it sounds very simple, but there's a lot of very small factors that create complexity to that. I'm looking for really subtle things. I'm educating the client as I go through it. I'm going through, and I'm gaining information from what they tell me, and I'm adjusting as I need to. I'm also like educating them and say, hey, because of this is what's going on. And usually 9 times out of 10, I can guess what pain they're feeling, why they're feeling it, when they're feeling it. Especially like the back of the hamstring is a really key one. If I'm flushing up the leg of the hamstring, and there's a hard, not a hard stop, but there's a lot more congestion, like almost there's a line that we're crossing, that usually is an indicator to me that they're sitting on a chair that's not benefiting them, that the chair is too high and their feet are too low. And that happens a lot with office work, because the chair is to support your shoulders and the height of everything, but then your feet are left out, and they don't usually have boxes or books to put underneath your feet to raise your feet up. So anyhow, that is my intro. I'm going to go in a lot more detail with what that means and what that looks like, but that's just kind of like an intro into this class I'm trying to create. And yeah, interesting stuff.